There is a moment that comes for every overachiever. A specific instant. Usually alone. Usually late at night. When you are staring at your next goal, your next achievement, your next mountain to climb, and instead of feeling motivated, you feel absolutely nothing. Not burnout. Not exhaustion. Something colder. A voice in your head that whispers a question you have never allowed yourself to ask. What if I just stopped? What if I walked away from all of it? What would happen if I let myself fail? And the thought doesn't horrify you the way it should. It seduces you. For just a moment, you imagine what it would feel like to disappoint everyone. To let the standards drop. To be ordinary. And the fantasy feels like oxygen after years of drowning. Carl Jung spent decades studying people like you. High performers. Perfectionists. The ones everyone admires. The ones who make it look effortless. And he discovered something that terrified him. The people most addicted to achievement were the same people unconsciously engineering their own destruction. Not because they were weak. Not because they lacked discipline. But because somewhere deep in their psyche, beneath all the accolades and accomplishments, a part of them was screaming to be free. And the only way it knew how to escape was through collapse. If you are watching this video right now, if something pulled you here through the algorithm, it is because you recognize this feeling. You have spent your entire life being the best. The most reliable. The one who exceeds expectations. And now you are standing at the edge of something you cannot name. A threshold between continuing the performance and letting the whole structure burn. This is not a motivational video. This is not about optimizing your productivity or achieving more with less effort. This is about understanding the dark psychology behind your need to achieve. And why the version of you that everyone celebrates might be the same version that is slowly killing you. You learned early that your worth was measurable. Not inherent. Not unconditional. But directly proportional to your output, your grades, your performance, your ability to exceed what was expected. Maybe it started with a parent who only showed affection when you brought home perfect scores. Or a teacher who made you feel special for being advanced. Or a sibling whose failure made you determined never to be like them. The specific origin does not matter as much as the pattern it created. You discovered that love, attention, validation, all of it was conditional. And the condition was excellence. So you learned to be excellent. Not because you naturally enjoyed it, but because it was the only way to feel safe. The only way to guarantee you would not be abandoned, criticized, or ignored. And it worked. You became the golden child. The star student. The employee of the month. The one everyone could count on. You built an identity around being exceptional. And that identity brought you everything you were told to want. Praise. Opportunities. Respect. A carefully constructed life that looked perfect from the outside. But Jung understood something most people miss. When you build your identity around achievement, you are not building on solid ground. You are building on sand. Because achievement is external. It requires constant validation from others. Constant proof that you are still worthy. Constant feeding of a hunger that can never actually be satisfied. You know this feeling intimately. The moment after you accomplish something significant. The degree. The promotion. The recognition. There is a brief flash of satisfaction. Maybe a few hours. Maybe a day. And then the emptiness returns. Heavier than before. Because the achievement did not fill the void. It just revealed how deep the void actually is. And your response is always the same. Set a bigger goal. Achieve something more impressive. Prove yourself again. Surely the next accomplishment will be the one that finally makes you feel enough. But it never is. And you are starting to realize it never will be. Jung called this the tyranny of the persona. You have constructed a version of yourself, the high achiever, the perfectionist, the reliable one, and you have performed this character so convincingly that everyone believes it is real. Including you. But it is not real. It is a mask. A survival strategy. A role you learn to play because the alternative, being ordinary, being flawed, being human, felt too dangerous to allow. And now you are trapped inside this persona. Every decision you make is filtered through the question, will this maintain my image as someone exceptional? Every opportunity is evaluated based on whether it enhances or threatens your carefully constructed identity. Every relationship is unconsciously structured around people seeing you as impressive, capable, superior. You have become a prisoner of your own success. And the worst part is, everyone thinks you are free. They look at your life and see someone who has it all together. Someone disciplined. Someone focused. Someone living their best life. They do not see what you see when you are alone. The exhaustion that sleep does not fix. The anxiety that hums beneath every interaction. The terror that someone will discover you are not actually as exceptional as you appear. Because here is what you know but cannot admit. You are not exceptional. You are compensating. Every achievement is not a celebration of your gifts. It is a defense against your perceived inadequacy. Every goal is not about growth. It is about proving you are not the worthless person you secretly believe yourself to be. Jung observed this pattern repeatedly in his most successful patients. Lawyers, doctors, executives, artists, people at the top of their fields who came to him in crisis. And they all described the same thing. A growing sense that their entire life was a performance. That they had been running toward something for so long they forgot why they started running. That they did not know who they were underneath all the accomplishments. You feel this most acutely in your relationships. Because you cannot actually connect with people. Not really. Not when you are constantly performing. Not when every interaction is an opportunity to prove your worth. Not when you are always calculating how to appear impressive, intelligent, successful. Your friendships are shallow. Not because you do not care. But because you cannot let anyone see the parts of you that are not impressive. The parts that are confused, afraid, ordinary. You have learned to hide those parts so effectively that you have almost convinced yourself they do not exist. Your romantic relationships follow a pattern. You attract people who admire your achievements. Who are impressed by your discipline. Who see you as someone who has their life together. And at first this feels validating. They love you for the exact thing you have built your identity around. But over time you start to feel unseen. Because they do not love you. They love the persona. They love the high achiever. And you realize you cannot let the mask slip because if you did, if they saw the messy, uncertain, struggling person underneath, they might leave. So you perform even in your most intimate relationships. You hide your struggles. You minimize your pain. You maintain the illusion of having everything under control. And the loneliness becomes unbearable. Because you are surrounded by people who think they know you, but none of them actually do. At work you are the reliable one. The person who always delivers. The one who never complains, never makes excuses, never asks for help. And this has brought you success. Promotions. Raises. Responsibilities. But it has also made you a prisoner. Because now you cannot afford to be anything less than exceptional. The standard you set for yourself has become the standard everyone expects. And you are trapped in a cycle of constantly proving you deserve the position you have earned. You work longer hours than necessary. You take on projects that are not your responsibility. You say yes when you should say no. Not because you want to, but because you are terrified of what happens if you stop. If you set a boundary. If you admit you have limits. Because limits mean you are not exceptional. Limits mean you are ordinary. And ordinary, in your psyche, means worthless. So you push harder. You optimize your morning routine. You read the productivity books. You implement the systems. You track your habits. You gamify your life. All in service of squeezing more output from yourself. More proof. More validation. More evidence that you are not the inadequate person you fear yourself to be. And your body is starting to rebel. The tension headaches that never fully go away. The digestive issues that doctors cannot explain. The insomnia. The constant low-level anxiety. These are not random symptoms. These are your psyche and soma screaming that something is profoundly wrong. But you ignore them. Because acknowledging them would mean slowing down. And slowing down would mean the possibility of being caught. Of someone realizing you are not actually as capable as you appear. Of the entire structure collapsing. Jung understood that this is not discipline. This is not drive. This is terror masquerading as ambition. You are not running towards success. You are running away from the feeling of being worthless. And no amount of achievement will ever create enough distance from that feeling. Because the feeling is not about what you have accomplished. It is about who you believe yourself to be at your core. And here is the darkest part. The part Jung observed that most people never consciously acknowledge. You are starting to want it to collapse. Not consciously. Not in a way you would ever admit. But somewhere in your unconscious, a part of you is engineering failure. You are taking on too much. Saying yes to everything. Stretching yourself so thin that something has to break. And when people warn you that you are doing too much, you brush them off. You say you can handle it. You say you thrive under pressure. But that is not what is happening. What is happening is that your shadow, the part of you that has been suppressed and denied for years, is trying to free you the only way it knows how. By creating a situation so unsustainable that collapse becomes inevitable. Jung called this the enantiodromia. The principle that everything eventually transforms into its opposite. The overachiever becomes the self-saboteur. The perfectionist engineers their own failure. Not out of weakness, but out of a desperate need for liberation. Because a part of you knows that as long as you can maintain the performance, you will. As long as collapse is avoidable, you will avoid it. The only way you will give yourself permission to stop is if stopping is forced upon you. If you have no choice. So your unconscious begins creating the conditions for that choice to be made for you. You miss deadlines you have never missed before. You make mistakes that are not like you. You start conflicts that jeopardize relationships. You engage in behaviors that threaten everything you have built. And when people notice, when they ask what is wrong, you cannot explain it. Because you do not consciously know what you are doing. You just know that something inside you is unraveling. And part of you is terrified. But another part, a part you do not want to acknowledge, is relieved. This is the dark psychology of the overachiever. You are not afraid of failure. You are afraid of success. Because success means you have to keep performing. Keep achieving. Keep proving. Forever. And your psyche is beginning to understand that this is not sustainable. That you cannot maintain this pace. That something has to give. The question is whether you will consciously choose to stop before your unconscious forces you to. Jung spent years studying what he called the shadow. The parts of yourself you have rejected, denied, hidden away because they did not fit the persona you constructed. For the overachiever, the shadow contains everything that contradicts the image of perfection. Laziness. Mediocrity. Failure. Ordinariness. Weakness. Vulnerability. These are not moral failings. They are human qualities. But you learned early that these qualities were unacceptable. That they would result in rejection, criticism, abandonment. So you buried them. You split yourself in two. The acceptable overachiever who everyone sees. And the unacceptable human who lives in the shadow. And you have spent your entire life feeding the persona while starving the shadow. But Jung discovered that the shadow does not disappear just because you ignore it. It grows in the darkness. It accumulates energy. And eventually it demands to be acknowledged. If you will not acknowledge it consciously, it will make itself known unconsciously. Through self-sabotage. Through inexplicable behaviors. Through the very failures you have spent your life trying to avoid. This is why you are starting to fantasize about collapse. Why the idea of walking away from everything feels increasingly seductive. Why you lie in bed at night imagining what it would be like to just stop trying. To let yourself be ordinary. To disappoint everyone. These are not signs that you are broken. These are signs that your shadow is trying to integrate. That the parts of you that you have denied are demanding recognition. And the fantasy of failure is your psyche's way of showing you what liberation might look like. But here is what most people miss. Integration does not mean giving up. It does not mean becoming lazy or mediocre or ordinary. It means becoming whole. It means acknowledging that you are human. That you have limits. That you do not have to be exceptional to deserve love, respect, belonging. The integrated overachiever does not stop achieving. But they achieve from a different place. Not from terror. Not from compensation. Not from a desperate need to prove their worth. But from genuine interest. From authentic desire. From a place of already feeling enough. This is what Jung called individuation. The process of integrating the shadow and becoming a whole person rather than a fragmented persona. And for the overachiever, this process is terrifying. Because it requires doing the one thing you have spent your entire life avoiding. It requires letting people see you fail. Letting them see you struggle. Letting them see you be ordinary, flawed, human. And risking that they will reject you for it. Most overachievers never take this risk. They keep performing until their body forces them to stop. Until the burnout becomes so severe they have no choice. Until the collapse they have been unconsciously engineering finally happens. But a few, the ones who are willing to face their shadow consciously, they make a different choice. They begin the process of integration before they are forced into it. And what they discover on the other side transforms everything. The first step is the hardest. It is admitting, out loud, to yourself and ideally to someone you trust, that you are not okay. That the performance is exhausting. That you do not actually know who you are underneath all the achievements. That you are terrified of being ordinary. This admission feels like death. Because in a way, it is. It is the beginning of the persona's dissolution. The carefully constructed identity you have defended for years is starting to crack. And everything in you wants to repair it, reinforce it, pretend the crack is not there. But Jung taught that you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. And the only way through this is to let the persona crack. To let people see the parts of you that are not impressive. To risk their judgment, their disappointment, their rejection. What you will discover, if you are brave enough to do this, is that the rejection you feared does not come. Or if it does, it comes from people who were never actually seeing you anyway. Who were in relationship with your persona, not with you. The people who matter, the people capable of real connection, they do not need you to be exceptional. They just need you to be real. And when you finally let them see the struggling, uncertain, ordinary parts of you, something remarkable happens. You feel seen for the first time. Not admired. Not impressed. Seen. As a whole person. With strengths and weaknesses. With achievements and failures. With the capacity for both excellence and mediocrity. And this being seen creates a kind of relief you have never experienced. Because you no longer have to maintain the performance. You no longer have to hide. You can finally rest. The second step is learning to derive your worth from something other than achievement. This is the most difficult psychological work you will ever do. Because your entire identity has been built on the foundation of performance. And now you are being asked to find a different foundation. Jung would say the foundation is the self with a capital S. The part of you that exists independent of what you do, what you accomplish, what others think of you. The eternal core of consciousness that was there before you learned to achieve and will be there after all your achievements have turned to dust. But you cannot think your way to this knowing. You can only experience it. And the experience comes through stillness. Through stopping. Through creating space in your life that is not filled with productivity, goals, or performance. This is why meditation is so difficult for overachievers. Because in stillness, without the distraction of achievement, you are forced to confront the void. The feeling that without your accomplishments, you are nothing. And sitting with that feeling, not running from it, not filling it, just being with it, is how you discover that it is a lie. You are not nothing. You are something that exists independent of what you do. And the more you can touch this truth, even briefly, the less power achievement has over you. The third step is setting boundaries. Real boundaries. Not the kind you set and then violate when someone is disappointed. But actual limits on your time, energy, and capacity. This means saying no. To opportunities. To projects. To people. Even when saying no makes you look less impressive. Even when it means someone else will get the opportunity. Even when it triggers every fear you have about being ordinary. You will say no and your nervous system will scream that you are making a mistake. That you are sabotaging yourself. That you are letting people down. And you will have to sit with that discomfort and do it anyway. Because every boundary you set is a reclamation. Every no is you choosing yourself over the persona. Every limit you acknowledge is you integrating your shadow instead of denying it. And slowly, over time, something shifts. The constant anxiety begins to ease. The exhaustion begins to lift. The need to prove yourself begins to fade. Because you are no longer running from worthlessness. You are starting to know, not just believe, that you have worth independent of what you achieve. This is what Jung called the integrated personality. Someone who has merged the persona with the shadow. Who can be both excellent and ordinary. Who can achieve without their worth depending on the achievement. Who can fail without it destroying them. And this integration creates a kind of power that the persona could never access. Because when you are no longer afraid of failure, you become truly free. Free to take risks. Free to be creative. Free to pursue things because they interest you, not because they will impress others. The integrated overachiever still accomplishes things. Often more than they did before. But the quality changes. They are no longer grinding. No longer compensating. No longer proving. They are creating. Playing. Exploring. From a place of fullness rather than lack. Their relationships transform because they are no longer performing. They can be vulnerable. They can ask for help. They can admit when they do not know something. And this vulnerability creates the intimacy that was always missing. Their work changes because they can finally say no to projects that do not align with them. They can set boundaries without guilt. They can prioritize rest without feeling lazy. And paradoxically, their output often improves. Because they are working from a sustainable place rather than constantly borrowing from tomorrow's energy. They develop what Jung called a relationship with the unconscious. They pay attention to their dreams. They notice when their body is telling them to slow down. They recognize when they are slipping back into old patterns of compensation and performance. And most importantly, they stop being afraid of ordinariness. They understand that being human, being flawed, being limited, these are not failures. These are the conditions of existence. And trying to transcend them through achievement is not ambition. It is avoidance. Jung observed that people who successfully integrated their shadow developed a quality he struggled to name. It was not confidence, though they appeared confident. It was not peace, though they seemed at peace. It was something more like sovereignty. They had an internal authority that did not require external validation. They knew who they were independent of what they achieved. And that knowing made them essentially unmanipulable. You could not control them with praise or criticism. You could not motivate them with status or recognition. You could not make them perform by threatening their image. They had become psychologically sovereign. And that sovereignty was visible to everyone around them. People sensed they had changed. That the desperate quality was gone. That they no longer needed anything from you. Some people were threatened by this change. The ones who had benefited from the overachiever's endless capacity for work. the ones who had used their need for validation to extract value. These people often pulled away, and the integrated overachiever let them go without the usual pain. Other people were drawn closer. Authentic people who valued real connection over impressive performances. Creative people who recognized a kindred spirit. Other individuals who had done their own shadow work and could see that this person had done theirs. The overachiever's entire social ecosystem reorganized around their integration. And they did not have to force it. It happened naturally. Because when you change at a deep level, when you integrate your shadow and become whole, your energy changes. And energy attracts like energy. This is the sovereign reward. Not more success. Not more achievement. But freedom. The freedom to be yourself without performance. The freedom to fail without it destroying you. The freedom to be ordinary and know that ordinary is enough. You become untouchable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because your worth is no longer hostage to external validation. People can criticize you and it does not land the same way. You can fail and it does not confirm your deepest fears. You can be mediocre at something and it does not threaten your identity. You become integrated. Not perfect. Not exceptional. Whole. With the capacity for both achievement and rest. Both success and failure. Both excellence and ordinariness. All of it held within a self that knows its worth is not determined by performance. And you become invincible in the psychological sense. Not because you have no weaknesses, but because you have acknowledged them. You have integrated them. They are no longer hidden in shadow where they can sabotage you unconsciously. They are conscious, known, accepted. This is what exists on the other side of the dark night of the overachiever. Not the death of your ambition, but the birth of authentic drive. Not the end of achievement, but the beginning of achievement that comes from wholeness rather than woundedness. So if you are watching this video, if you recognize yourself in everything I have described, you are standing at a threshold. Behind you is the persona, the performance, the endless achievement that never fills the void. The terror disguised as ambition. Ahead of you is integration. The dissolution of the mask. The acknowledgement of your shadow. The risk of being seen as ordinary and discovering you survive it. The slow, difficult, necessary work of building worth on a foundation that cannot be taken away. Most overachievers stay on the safe side of this threshold. They keep performing until they cannot anymore. Until their body breaks down. Until the collapse they have been unconsciously engineering finally happens. And then they are forced to face what they could have faced voluntarily. But you do not have to wait for the collapse. You can choose integration now. You can begin the work of shadow acknowledgement before your unconscious forces it. You can start setting boundaries, admitting struggles, letting people see your humanity while you still have the energy to do it consciously. This is your moment. Not to achieve more. Not to optimize further. But to stop. To turn inward. To ask yourself the question you have been avoiding your entire life. Who am I when I am not achieving? What exists underneath the persona? What would it feel like to be enough exactly as I am? Your shadow knows the answer. It has been trying to show you through the fantasies of failure, through the self-sabotage, through the exhaustion that will not lift. It is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to free you. So do not fight it anymore. Do not push harder. Do not set another goal thinking this one will finally be enough. Stop. Let the persona crack. Let people see you struggle. Risk being ordinary. And discover that on the other side of that risk is not the rejection you feared, but the freedom you have been unconsciously destroying yourself to find. Leave a comment. Not for me. For you. One word. One phrase. Whatever marks this moment. I see it. I am ready. No more performing. Choosing integration. Whatever names the choice you are making right now. Because naming it makes it real. Declaring it, even to strangers on the internet, creates a contract with your unconscious. A commitment to stop running and start integrating. This video found you when your psyche was ready for this message. Not when it was comfortable. When it was ready. And if you have watched this far, you know what that means. Your transformation has already begun. The persona is already cracking. The shadow is already emerging. The only question is whether you will resist it or surrender to it. Choose wisely. Your sovereignty depends on it. The overachiever who stops trying has not given up. They have finally woken up to the truth that they were always enough. That the performance was never necessary. That the person underneath the achievements deserved love all along. Welcome to your integration. You have earned this through every exhausting achievement, every sleepless night, every moment you chose performance over presence. Now you get to choose differently. The real you is waiting. Not the impressive you. Not the exceptional you. The integrated you. Sovereign. Whole. Free. This is not the end of your ambition. This is the beginning of your life.